After more than 20 years working on BMWs, I've seen engines that should run perfectly at 150,000 miles end up needing $4,000 to $8,000 repairs far too early. Not because BMW built them poorly, and not because owners skipped maintenance, it's because of hidden factory settings quietly adding stress every single day. Mike here from Forever BMW. In this video, I'm breaking down 5 BMW settings that reduce long-term reliability, and setting number 4 alone can dramatically accelerate internal engine wear if you leave it active. Stay with me. Let's start with the biggest one. 1. Auto Start-Stop System, MSA. Let's start with the feature I disable on almost every BMW the moment I get in it. Auto Start-Stop. BMW calls it MSA. It shuts the engine off at traffic lights and restarts it the second you lift off the brake. It's standard across most modern platforms. F30, G20, G30, X3, X5, especially anything running the B48 or B58. On paper, it saves fuel and reduces emissions. In real-world driving, it adds wear cycles. In dense city traffic, I've logged 25 to 40 restarts per day. That works out to roughly 8,000 to 12,000 additional starts per year for a daily commuter. Over 5 years, that's 40,000 to 60,000 extra engine start events your car would never have seen a decade ago. And every single restart happens during boundary lubrication. That brief moment before full oil pressure builds and a stable protective film forms around crankshaft bearings, cam journals, and turbocharger shafts. That's where the majority of internal wear occurs in any engine. BMW does reinforce the system, heavier duty starters, AGM batteries, intelligent charging, but none of that removes mechanical shock. It only helps manage it. In the workshop, patterns emerge. Starters in heavy stop-and-go cars often need replacement around 70,000 to 90,000 miles. Similar highway-driven cars frequently exceed 120,000 miles on original starters. Engine mounts fatigue sooner in urban cars. Dual-mass flywheels show earlier wear. Turbochargers on short-trip cars see more stress from repeated hot shutdowns followed by immediate restarts. It's cumulative. If you plan to keep the car long-term, the approach is simple. Turn it off at the start of every drive. On models that allow coding, set the default to off using proper BMW-specific tools. This isn't about chasing performance. It's about reducing unnecessary mechanical cycles. You're giving up maybe 1 mile per gallon in city traffic. In return, you eliminate tens of thousands of hot restart events over the life of the engine. For anyone thinking beyond the warranty period, that trade makes mechanical sense every single time. And if repeated restarts add wear quietly, what do you think happens when BMW's extended oil intervals are left untouched at the same time? 2. Extended oil change intervals, CBS oil service logic. BMW's condition-based service system often stretches oil changes to 10,000 to 15,000 miles, sometimes even longer depending on driving style. It looks intelligent. It calculates load, temperature, idle time, fuel consumption. It feels precise, but it does not measure contamination. Modern BMW engines like the B48 and B58 are turbocharged, direct injected, and operate at high combustion pressures. That creates fuel dilution. Short trips create moisture buildup. Turbochargers routinely see extreme heat cycles. Oil in these engines is not just lubricating bearings, it is cooling a turbo that can spin beyond 150,000 RPM and protecting tight clearance, vanos, and timing components that rely on clean hydraulic flow. When oil is consistently pushed to 12,000 to 15,000 miles, the patterns become predictable. In the workshop, varnish begins forming inside turbo oil feed lines. Sludge accumulates around timing chain guides. Vanos solenoids begin sticking due to microscopic contamination. Timing chains stretch prematurely, sometimes before 90,000 to 100,000 miles. None of this triggers immediate warning lights. It develops quietly. Engines maintained strictly by the CBS reminder often show more internal discoloration and deposit buildup when opened up. By contrast, engines serviced every 5,000 to 6,000 miles typically have cleaner cam trays, healthier chain tensioners, and visibly lower sludge formation. The internal difference is not subtle. The annual cost difference, usually $100 to $200 more in additional oil services. That is minor compared to a $3,000 turbocharger replacement or a $5,000 to $7,000 timing chain job once lubrication pathways are compromised. The correct approach is disciplined and simple. Treat the CBS interval as a ceiling, never a target. On turbocharged BMW engines, oil changes every 5,000 to 6,000 miles significantly reduce contamination and preserve additive strength. Always use BMW approved LL01 or LL17FE plus full synthetic oil to maintain proper viscosity and thermal stability. BMW engines that pass 200,000 miles without major internal repairs do not operate on maximum factory oil intervals. They operate on conservative preventative maintenance schedules that prioritize longevity over convenience. And oil isn't the only adaptive system shaping long-term reliability. Your transmission is quietly learning habits that can either protect itself or wear itself out. And before we see that, make sure to subscribe because we're just getting started. 3. Aggressive transmission adaptive learning. BMW's automatic transmissions, especially the ZF 8-speed, are some of the best in the industry. Smooth, fast, incredibly intelligent. But that intelligence is also where long-term wear can quietly begin. These transmissions use adaptive learning. The TCU monitors throttle input, braking patterns, load, and driving aggression. Over time, it adjusts clutch pressure, shift timing, and torque converter lockup strategy to match how the car is driven. Sounds harmless. Here's the issue. If the car sees aggressive throttle inputs daily, heavy stop-and-go traffic, multiple drivers with different styles, or constant short bursts of sport mode driving, the adaptive logic starts commanding firmer, quicker clutch engagements. That increases clutch pressure and internal shock loads. I've seen BMWs under 80,000 miles develop harsh 2 to 3 upshifts, delayed downshifts, or slight flare between gears. Not because the transmission failed, but because the learned pressure strategy drifted toward aggressive calibration. Heat is the silent killer here. Every harsh engagement increases fluid temperature, and BMW markets many of these units as lifetime fluid. In reality, transmission fluid starts degrading around 60,000 miles, especially in turbocharged vehicles producing 300 to 400 plus pounds-feet of torque. Neglecting fluid changes leads to clutch glazing, valve body wear, and torque converter shudder, repairs that easily climb into the $4,000 to $6,000 range. The correct move is proactive. Reset adaptive values when shift quality declines, but only after replacing fluid and filter. Perform fluid service around 50,000 to 60,000 miles, regardless of what lifetime suggests. During relearn, drive calmly and consistently so the transmission adopts smooth pressure curves instead of aggressive ones. Transmissions that feel smooth at 150,000 miles weren't left to learn bad habits for a decade. And if you think shifting strategy affects longevity, wait until you see how BMW's drive modes quietly influence engine stress every single day. 4. Sport mode and drive mode defaults that increase engine stress. BMW gives you options: Eco Pro, Comfort, Sport, Sport, plus and most owners treat them like mood settings. What doesn't get explained clearly is that these modes directly alter throttle mapping, transmission behavior, boost delivery, and even how aggressively cooling systems respond. In Sport and Sport Plus, throttle sensitivity sharpens immediately. The transmission holds lower gears longer. Downshifts happen sooner. RPM stays elevated for extended periods. On engines like the B58, N55, and S58, that feels incredible. The car feels alive, but there's a mechanical cost. Higher sustained RPM means more combustion cycles per mile. More combustion cycles mean more heat. In real-world logs I've reviewed, daily driven BMWs left in sport mode consistently show oil temperatures running 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, higher than identical cars driven primarily in comfort. Turboshaft speeds increase more frequently. Boost pressure spikes happen more often during completely normal commuting. That extra thermal load adds cumulative wear. Timing chains experience more tension events. Vanos solenoids cycle more aggressively. Turbo bearings operate at higher average speeds. None of this destroys an engine immediately, but over 80,000 to 150,000 miles, it compounds. Sport mode isn't the enemy. Making it your default setting is. Eco Pro brings its own issue. It encourages low RPM cruising and early upshifts. Lugging a turbocharged inline-six at 1,200 to 1,500 RPM under moderate load increases cylinder pressure, while oil flow and pump speed remain lower than ideal. High load at low RPM isn't efficient long-term stress management. The mistake is treating drive modes as personality choices instead of mechanical strategies. Comfort mode should handle the majority of daily driving. It keeps RPM stable, boost moderate, and thermal load predictable. Sport should be used intentionally once oil temperature is fully stabilized for short-spirited runs. Eco Pro should never be used when climbing hills or applying heavy throttle. Engines that reach 200,000 miles don't live at redline, and they don't live lugging either. They operate within stable, controlled conditions most of their life, so drive modes can quietly raise heat and stress levels without most owners realizing it. But what if the car is also changing how it manages power and charging behind the scenes every single day? Which brings us to our final setting. 5. Intelligent Charging and Energy Management System. This is the one almost no one talks about it because you can't see it working. There's no flashy button, no menu setting, but it's active every single time you drive. Modern BMWs use what's called intelligent alternator control as part of efficient dynamics. Instead of charging the battery consistently like older vehicles did at 14.2 to 14.8 volts, the alternator deliberately reduces charging under acceleration to free up 1 to 3 horsepower. Then during braking or coasting, it aggressively charges, sometimes pushing voltage above 15 volts. On paper, it improves fuel economy by roughly 1 to 2%. In real life, it means your AGM battery is constantly cycling instead of staying fully charged. Most BMWs operate the battery between roughly 70% and 90% state of charge. That repeated cycling creates heat and stress inside the battery plates. And here's what happens next. Instead of lasting 5 to 7 years like older BMW batteries, many modern AGM units fail around year 3 to 4. In heavy stop-and-go driving with auto start-stop active, I've seen failures as early as 30,000 to 40,000 miles. Once resting voltage drops below about 12.2 volts, the car starts behaving strangely. You'll see drivetrain malfunction warnings, transmission shift irregularities, rough cold starts, random electronic glitches. I've watched owners chase these symptoms for months, spending $300 to $600 in diagnostic fees before realizing the root cause was simply a weak battery. And here's where it gets even more important. When replacing the battery, BMW requires battery registration. If you install a new battery without registering it, the DME continues charging based on the old battery's wear history. That can overcharge or undercharge the new unit, shortening its lifespan by 20 to 40%. If reliability is the goal, test resting voltage annually. Replace proactively around year 4. Always register the battery properly. Because unstable system voltage doesn't just kill batteries, it stresses every control module in the vehicle. And that's how a quiet energy management strategy slowly turns into a $1,000 plus electrical repair bill. And when you combine aggressive drive modes, extended oil intervals, and constant restart cycles, the bigger picture becomes clear. Let's pull all of this together. Final recap. The settings that quietly decide your BMW's lifespan. So there you have it. 5 BMW settings that quietly reduce engine and drivetrain longevity. Auto start-stop adding thousands of extra restart cycles. Extended oil service intervals that push lubrication beyond what turbocharged engines really want. Adaptive transmission learning that can reinforce harsh shift patterns. Drive modes that increase heat and stress when used constantly. And intelligent charging strategies that prioritize efficiency over long-term component comfort. None of these will destroy your engine tomorrow, but across 100,000 miles, they absolutely change how parts wear. Which one surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want your BMW running strong past 200,000 miles. And check out the next video where Mike breaks down what actually makes a BMW engine feel factory fresh again.